What's up, Mortgage Coach community? I am sitting down with Clayton Collins. What's up, Clayton?
How's it going, Dave? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. So I actually don't know totally how to interview or how to position you because are you? I know you are the owner and CEO of HousingWire, but you're the editor, right?
No, I'm not. I'm a banker by background, man. I came out of I was an M&A banker. We bought HousingWire in 2016, formed HW Media as the holding company for HousingWire, and then have been building this news and content business around the real estate and mortgage world. So HousingWire was our platform in 16. We acquired Real Trends in 2020, Reverse Mortgage Daily in 2021, launched FinLedger in 2020, a few other events and newsletters along the way. But I'm the business operator. Occasionally you'll catch me writing an ed note or hosting the Housing News podcast, but certainly not a journalist by background.
Well, I knew you weren't a journalist, but by the way you answered that set up perfectly for who you are to me and how I think of you is, guys, this guy is the number one new media entrepreneur in housing. And, whether that's mortgage, whether that's real estate, he's an entrepreneur and he is looking at the world and how it's being shaped with media. And he is either buying or building media platforms that bring news to mortgage and real estate professionals. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, our goal, our mission is to serve housing and real estate professionals with the news and information and data they need to make decisions and be better operators themselves. Whether you're an originator who needs great knowledge to talk to borrowers about, or a real estate agent who's trying to figure out if their market is growing or shrinking, or a mortgage executive who's acquiring or investing in organic growth, we want to make sure our media platforms provide some value in helping with those business decisions.
Perfect. So this is the setup, guys. It is halftime. Like we're one day away from June 2022, and I have I've been doing this now for 30 years. I've seen lots of shifts in the market. I have seen rates go up really quick. I've seen them go down really quick. I've never seen them go up 2% in 2 months. I've never seen a combination of that kind of rate shift and low, historically low inventory. And I've also never seen so much equity in America. So it's like we're in this market that's, and I guess every shift that's ever happened, they're not the same, but this particular shift is really different because there's a very big, some negative things that have hit us really hard, and there's some really positive things. And I just think this is one of those markets where the, loan officers, leaders of loan officers, executives of mortgage companies, the ones that play this next 6 months right are just gonna kill it. In I don't know if it's 6 months when we get a better market, or whether it's 18 months or 2.5 years, but I know that sometime in the next 2 to 3 years, the people that play it right are going to just kill it. Do you feel the same way?
Oh, absolutely. And you're seeing a lot of different strategies out there right now. I mean, I think initially we saw a lot of cost reductions related specifically shops that were refi heavy and saw refi wash out. But lately we've seen even some cost reductions in folks that are really strong or exclusively purchase shops. I just saw today that a newish purchase only lender made a pretty significant cost reduction, which feels off in this market, but ultimately there's players that are making sure they position their business to be the winner on the other side. And if that means extending your or reducing your cash burn to prepare to be the winner when inventory gets a little bit stronger, or positioning your balance sheet to be an acquirer, if in an M&A scenario, there's definitely a lot of people playing different strategies to make sure they come out stronger on the other side of this.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Well, I'm currently writing an article, and hopefully we can figure out some way to have this in HousingWire in some way. But I'm doing it with Kristen Messerly. It's called the 2022 State of the Mortgage Industry Halftime Report. And so, halftime, guys, let's review what's happening. So I'm going to interview a number not a big number, less than a half a dozen, less than a dozen, more than a half dozen, probably like 8 to 9 executives like yourself, and ask relatively similar questions. So let me go through this process if you don't mind. And I just want to know, like, when you think of the market we're in, the data, the realities of this market and the data that this market represents. What are some of the three, call it pivotal data points and realities that you think are impacting today's market?
I think one of the most kind of prominent data points right now is the last week's purchase apps data. Um, Kind of tough metrics, but like the headline is apps are back at 2009 levels, and that's that's a scary spot to be. Purchase origination volume just isn't where you'd expect as we head into late spring summer buying season, but it's inventory that's constraining purchase apps. So I think there's a lot of folks who like to point at any time a metric gets close to 2009 that like, oh, we're in turmoil bubble area. But where you see a divergence in the data is last time apps were this low in 2009, inventory was shooting through the roof, and that's not the scenario we're in now. So apps are low, inventory is low, and there's a bunch of different other data points that come into play there. So like one of the reasons, and we all know this, but one of the reasons inventory shot up so high in 2009 was forced selling and foreclosure. Right now, 98% of the homes in default or foreclosure are equity positive, which is just a crazy metric, and which means there is no forced selling. If a borrower can't afford their mortgage, loses their job, some other scenario, they can sell into a cash positive situation. Or if the home actually does go into an REO portfolio, the banks aren't in forced selling positions either. So like it's a weird dynamic, and there's some data points like this purchase volume level, which feels familiar to 2009, but nothing else ties out with what we saw in that period at the last cycle. So I think data is extremely important, but more important than looking at individual data points is triangulating the data points and making sure that you're not hinging on a single metric to kind of determine what you think this market's going to look like for the next 6 months or 3 years. It's the triangulation of data points between apps and rates and supply and demand and overall other inventory metrics and pending home sales and new home construction and completions that really tells the whole story of the market that we're playing in.
So, this is one ask, because when we write this article, we publish it. We want this to be incredibly valuable to loan officers. And then I think a lot of mortgage executives, they'll be like, oh, I heard all of this, but we're going to give them one resource.
Yeah.
I also, I'm just a huge fan of you as an entrepreneur, as a human, and I love all your media. And so if you have a graph that you want to show, I promise we'll source it. But if there's I want to just have a couple images that like nail that. So that's, by the way, you mentioned a bunch of data points. And I agree, that is shocking. The new sales, obviously rates going up by 2%. What's another data point? Like, what's another data point that you think is really relevant to both the struggle and the opportunity of this market?
I mean, we talked about the struggle a little bit. I mean, I think talk about inventory as a struggle. I'd still say demographics are the opportunity, and the opportunity that compounds the struggle to an extent. The buyers are there, the jobs are there, the incomes are there, the household formation is there. All of these demographic and economic data points point toward continued interest and continued pressure on new home and existing home sales. So there's like this feeling that like home price appreciation has been staggering the last 2 years, and everybody's models broken over what home price appreciation can do. And for better or for worse, we're going through a 2022 at this halfway point where home price appreciation is still going to be running hot in the double digits. And that makes a lot of people feel like housing is unaffordable, or we're in the dreaded B word territory. but it is not supported by the demographic data. And as unaffordable as we say housing is, the jobs and income data supports that we're going to continue in this like supply demand imbalance zone. So it's the demographics are the opportunity.
Okay, and let's try to get one more data point out of you.
Yep.
And I do want to know if you have any data on equity, but if there was one other key data point, call it brutal reality or beautiful reality, if there was one more data point that you think is driving, the struggle and the opportunity in this market, what would it be?
Household tenure. So you go back to like 1999 to 2007, the average homeowner was staying in their home for 5 to 7 years. When you look at 2008 to 2022, we're now averaging 11 to 13 years. So people just aren't moving as frequently, and that only gets compounded by this high home price appreciation market. So like you have homeowners, I'm probably in this bucket where like I might be upgrading homes in a year or two, but I'm probably not, because like the neighborhoods that we might have naturally upgraded to have grown even faster than the one we're in now. So tenure amongst people that are at like prime like household growth ages, whether it's because of income growth or like number of children growth, are staying in their homes longer. And baby boomers are staying in their homes longer, with an emphasis on aging in place and being close to kids and grandkids. So household tenure is another like complicated data point that's really influencing the supply and demand imbalance.
Yeah, first of all, absolutely, it is a fact. I would have thought there would have been a little more movement coming out of COVID, because, the world's changed, and, people that work at home, having that office is more important than it was before. And no, the house that people were in before COVID, they lived a life a certain way. And then coming out of COVID, they're living life a different way. And I would have thought personally that you just would have seen a lot of moving up, moving down, kind of like moving into this COVID. But I think you're right, between rates, lack of inventory. Like, I don't know, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that there's some kind of pent up demand from COVID? Now, we have seen people move out of certain states and certain cities for different reasons, but any comments on that trend?
Yeah. So I was actually talking to Logan Motashami about this morning, and I was asking him like, do you think there'll be any like recoil, like when you go from 5 to 7 years, like average tenure in a home, to 11 to 13, is that essentially just the coil getting wound and like ready to release to like correct this activity on the other side? And Logan's view is that baby boomers are going to stay in their homes until their death, and that's and or very close to it. And like it's easy for the headlines to capture like this big like Zoom economy of people who are gonna like move from San Francisco to Iowa and like work on their computer, but like that's not like a huge part of our employment population. So like the recoil might exist in like certain segments of the economy, but it's probably not going to be as like meaningful as we hope. So maybe we see a bounce. Like actually, Logan's view was we might see a bounce from 11 to 13 down to 10 years on average. But I think we've found like the new weird point in our demographics where like 10 years is the average instead of 5 to 7 years, which is honestly not a great metric for like most real estate professions that are kind of driven off of volume of homes being bought and sold. Like staying in your house longer is not not great for real estate volumes, but it might be the market that we're approaching.
Well, I definitely won't debate him today on that. And I might have debated like when we were in COVID and it was all going, I was like feeling that the puck was going to move there. But I think given the data and then also rates being up where they're at right now, moving is just it's not an easy thing to do. So no debate here on that. By the way, if you don't mind passing it on to Logan, that if he is game, I would love to interview him for this article that Kristen and I are writing. I mean, his voice in this article would be amazing. So if you mind asking him if he would do an interview with me or Kristen or both of us.
No, happy to do that. Everyone wants to talk to Logan. We'll get you in there.
We would love to talk to Logan. So let's go. So new chapter. So we've just unpacked some realities, some data points, trends. What are trends in your mind? The biggest three trends impacting mortgage right now. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the trends that I think is being talked about quite a bit is that and we kind of started the conversation here, is that there's a little bit of a divergence between the winners and the losers. And that divergence, it starts at the tip of the spear. There's originators that are really, having a tough go in this market, and others that are finding success. And that kind of, that dynamic extends to mortgage banks and extends to real estate brokerage firms. And the folks that read the tea leaves for the last 3 years and knew that having a focus on a diversified book of business seemed to be coming in on like the winning side of this equation. And I say diversified instead of saying like pure focus on purchase, because I think that you always got to focus on purchase. You got to have the awesome purchase funnel and the great referral sources and the loyal real estate partners. But the lenders who are going to come out strong on the other side of this, I think also knew how to play the refi card when the refi card was available. It put a lot of cash on balance sheets and prepared people to be even stronger going into a strong purchase cycle. So like if you can build a business around purchase and then use the proceeds of a refi cycle to fund big technology initiatives or fund acquisitions, or if you're an originator, bolster your personal balance sheet, then I think that's a smart way to run a mortgage lending business. So when you talk about the trend there, it's a little bit of like a back to the basics, coaching and an effort on like the business isn't coming knocking on your door. So what do you have to do to make sure that you're the first phone call when the business is available? And is that going back to sponsoring and sitting at open houses with your real estate partners? Or is it just being the most efficient and communicative lender out there? And so there's people that are just going back to the strengths, the basics of being a great originator, that I think is a really positive trend. On a similar thread is that I think another trend in the market is we're gonna see some of the passerbys get kind of washed out. And if there's if you're too cool to go back to the basics or never learned the basics in the beginning, then I think the next couple of years are going to be tough for you. And that leads to the third trend. We might see a tighter, more consolidated market on the back end of this. So that means that there's going to be originators in markets who consolidate their own origination market share. So you're going to have less noisy passerbys taking business from you. But if you're going to win on the other side of this, you need to figure out an efficient way to staff and originate to do more volume. And the same goes for lenders. There's going to be some mortgage banks that get kind of washed out through the cycle. They're going to get acquired or close their doors or just be smaller on the other side of this. And that's painful. It's gonna create some drama and some change between employers and some headlines. But ultimately, if everyone's returning to the basics and focusing on the things that make them better lenders and better partners to the real estate agent and brokerage ecosystem, then we might actually end up in a stronger, more efficient place as an industry on the other side of this rapid rate increase.
Okay, let me take some of what you said and then put it into the view that I see. So you definitely talked a trend, and I don't call it winners versus strugglers, because I think everybody is struggling. Like you can win and be struggling. So I want to,
absolutely.
I want to think of this bullet point is gaining market share, losing market share. Like there's two sides of it. And then, when I became, closer with Sales Boomerang through our deal with LLR, I really started to see that, there's people gaining databases, like their database is growing and they have strategies to grow it. Yep. And they're not losing people in their database because, they've got big data, they've got machine intelligence, and they're losing less than others. And then I saw folks that, their databases aren't growing. They're not being progressive about getting databases from realtors. They're not looking at ways to, you know what, I want to build such an amazing fintech powered originator that we have a CRM, you know, we've got a boomerang, we've got a mortgage coach, we got a home bot, and just let's just call it other technology so that your data and your customers, they're getting monthly value. You know, they're managing their assets and liabilities intelligently. And then they're like recruiting databases from real estate agents and other types of places. And then there's people that are just like, hey, I'm in the mortgage business and I'm actually losing people because I don't have alerts and I'm not being aggressive at building my database. So that's a trend that I see. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's you took like the practical like explanation of my point on being efficient and communicative, and like the tools that you're talking about, from mortgage coach to boomerang to homebot are tools that enable mortgage banks and loan originators to communicate in an automated, in an intelligent way that keeps that touch point going with the borrower, the homeowner, and then in certain scenarios the real estate partner. That communication is critical to being that top of mind phone call or form complete or email response, like when somebody is ready to take action. And like we, through Real Trends, we have a lot of conversations with the real estate agent and brokerage side. And especially in this rapid rate increase environment, communication is like the word that keeps coming up more and more frequently. Agents are scared to death that like their buyers or prospective buyers, if they have the listing, are still qualified for a mortgage off of their pre-qual because of the rate increases or home price appreciation. So communication becomes this like mission critical point, and whether that's being done through technology or through text message, it's communication. Any point of change, any inflection point becomes more critical than ever.
So a trend that I'm working hard to create, and it's really, you know, my personal mission, that's also part of the mortgage coach mission, is that mortgage professionals become that captain of the wealth team. You know, and I have this thesis that there is a financial literacy crisis in America.
Yep.
And if every consumer was just better informed, you know, people that are renting, they understood the economic difference between renting and owning. You know, if kids graduated from high school and college, and whether they graduated or not, they ever went through any type of educational experience in America, like they learned how money works. They learned how owning real estate works. They learned like if America was more fiscally literate, like we would have a stronger country. We would have healthier people, healthier relationships, and it's fixable. Like I don't think it's like this problem that can't be fixed. And I have this thesis that mortgage and real estate professionals can fix it. Like we touch enough consumers, you know, whether it's first time home buyer, whether it's a move up buyer, whether it's a family, you know, elderly thinking, hey, should I right size? Should I do a reverse mortgage? Like if we just really became better educators, like it could be a trend that we could improve savings rates in America. We could improve wealth accumulation in America. What are your thoughts? Do you think we could fix this problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the cool parts of positioning real estate professionals and mortgage professionals as part of that education path is the nature of the role, the jobs in communities. So like you think about like the number of active real estate professionals and active mortgage origination professionals. Yeah, 2 million, 2.5 million financially literate professionals out there in every single market in the country. And like I have a bet with a high degree of certainty, there's a real estate professional within like 1 or 2 degrees of separation of every single American in the country through like friends, families, or schools. Like you're literally dropping somebody who's like has accountability and an incentive to motivate and to educate people on financial and real estate literacy in every single family and community in the country. It's a cool way to think about it. That's like, 2.5 million professionals out there deployed to teach and educate on something that we're all pretty passionate about. Like I don't know a mortgage professional who wouldn't like geek out about the prospect of getting to teach somebody about the benefits of homeownership, not just the equity appreciation, but the things that it can do for family and education and health. Like we touch we touch the economy in a lot of positive ways.
Yeah, well, I think we can. I think, the challenge you and I have is we've got to get mortgage and real estate professionals to go beyond the transaction and like realize and go beyond the lifestyle. Like, realtors, they pretty much advertise, around I'm your lifestyle person. By the way, I'm not saying stop doing that, because people, when they buy homes, they are buying a lifestyle and you need to do that. But I also think the home is the single biggest financial planning decision that most Americans make. And it is lifestyle and it is a financial instrument. And they don't think about that. And I would push any realtor listening to this, work with a mortgage professional that understands the power of equity and understands the power of managing your liabilities. Because I personally believe that, more than half, the vast majority of people that get a mortgage, they don't necessarily get the right mortgage. They either put too little down, too much down. They don't finance all the other things in their life, whether it's student loans, car loans, credit cards. Like they're just more strategic about managing both liabilities and equity. Like the majority of Americans could be better off if they were more strategic. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think like anything in education, I think there's power of not letting perfection get in the way of progress. And even if like mortgage and real estate professionals teach what they know, like if you can teach someone that they can buy a home, and even if it's optimal, they should have put 5% down, they ultimately save for 10. I don't think we should let like that perfection get in the way of progress and helping more people
Totally agree.
get into a home and figure it out. And I think that like, every real estate professional that, has been through like the right amount of training and has advised a certain number of clients on transactions should have confidence in their ability to help somebody make progress in their financial life.
Yeah, I love it. So let's close out third chapter of this article we're writing. So it's realities and data. It's trends that represent the opportunities in the market, which, remember, guys, there is a digital transition taking place in the world. And if you're a lender and you're not leveraging technology and media, which are trends, they'll be in the article. But, I think, Clayton, you've brought some really cool ideas. But now let's just get into three opportunities. Whether you're a loan officer, whether you lead loan officers, whether you run, your C-suite running, and let's just say mortgage, like we can talk about real estate, but what are you, in your mind, what are the three top opportunities out there right now? We're in June of 2022.
At the origination level, or how high, where do we want to sit here?
However you want to answer it, because I'm going to interview different people, and I'm sure I'm going to get this answered in different ways. So how do you want to answer that question?
I mean, I guess I'll start with like a talking point of like never let a good crisis go to waste. And I think
love that quote. By the way, we're going to quote that. Anybody listen to that? Clayton Collins, never let a good crisis go to waste, on social media.
Whether you're originating and you have prospective borrowers who feel like they're in crisis mode, this is the time to demonstrate your expertise and confidence and coach them, your prospective borrowers, through this process and period of uncertainty. So like the crisis is uncertainty, the opportunity is building yourself as an expert that actually helps people navigate crisis with confidence.
Ooh.
If you're an operator, if you're like myself or Dave or a mortgage bank CEO, this is the time that you either decide, do you retreat, be conservative, or go aggressive? And I'll tell you, my mentality is I'm going aggressive, and I'm going to find a way to move faster and build my business to a whole new level that that, it's going to come with pain, it's going to come with uncertainty, but we're going to navigate it, and we're going to do it with precision. And I'm pretty excited about that. So that's
I love that. So I do think we got a good quote that will definitely make the article out of how you answered that. But I'm going to push you for one more opportunity, one more strategy. Got anything else that you want to share?
Yeah, and I think this kind of applies across the industry too. But I think there's a lot of lenders out there who want to be acquisitive in this market, because there's more than one like mortgage banking M&A opportunity out there right now. But everyone that's smart, or at least has smart advisors, is realizing like their strengths and their limitations. And if you are a mortgage bank that has underinvested in technology or is behind the adoption curve in technology, it is very unlikely that you're going to be a successful acquirer as we go through this cycle. Because when you acquire a mortgage bank, you need the originators to come along with it. And nobody wants to join a bank who has subpar technology to the place they're leaving. So if you're recruiting or acquiring, I think it's very hard to bring the best originators or the best real estate agents, the best processors or underwriters or capital markets professionals into your ecosystem if you don't have the system and tools and capabilities that are at least as good, hopefully better than where they're coming from. And so I think it's a really important time to be thoughtful about where you are on the technology innovation and adoption curve, and make sure you're building a business that's not only efficient and capable for the folks that already work for you, but is good enough or better to recruit more people into your organization. And if you are fortunate enough to acquire the right mortgage banking assets, provide an organization and a platform that makes those people more effective and more efficient than where they were in their last shop.
So I just want to riff on that. And then I do have one more question on validating a strategy I see. But guys, I started in this business before the LOS was a word, before it was an acronym. My first loan was taken on a yellow sheet of paper, and I had a processor that typed out the 1003, and the LOS came along. I could still remember the business before a product and pricing engine, when the product and pricing engine was a fax machine. And you'd get a bunch of, well, by the way, the fax machine was an innovation once upon a time. And guys, it was just a few years ago, like just 2018, when taking an app with a link was a new idea, point of sale. Like that's not 5 years old yet. Like that is I think the rocket went off in 2016, and then the industry kind of built a product and pricing or a POS by about 2017, 2018. And I want every loan officer to think about it right now, guys. Like it's only been a couple of years, and COVID drove it, where that's a standard. And with sales boomerang, data. Like I can tell you right now, having data scientists and big data, making sure that you can anticipate a mortgage, it will be an industry standard by 2025. And get a little bit of an edge you sell here for Mortgage Coach, sales boomerang, call it borrower intelligence, a digital presentation that's educational. Those will all be standard in 2025. And maybe it will take till 2027. But if you're not using those and platforms, where you're putting your customer into a platform like a HomeBot, and you're helping them manage their wealth, not just do a loan transaction, those will all be standard. Like it's not a question of if, it's just when. So my last question is, I saw some data recently, and I can't remember, I don't want to try to quote it, but it was like the number of baby boomers, first time home buyers, or I can't remember what the data was, but the amount of real estate that baby boomers controlled when they were like, let's just say 31, was, double. It was crazy. It was like 26%. And then when you look at, I don't know what the age is, 31-year-old millennials, it's like single digit. It's a really low number. It's not sustainable. And Kristen and Messerly and I are writing an article in parallel of this one, really just talking about the gap, the real estate gap. It's not sustainable. And so I think there's a trend that's going in the wrong direction, affordability for the next generation, and the ability for the next generation to build wealth with real estate. What are your thoughts on that trend? I mean, it's a negative trend, but it's also, I think it's a trend. I don't think we can fix it. Like I do believe mortgage and real estate professionals at the ground level can almost fix financial literacy. This one, it's political. There's some things that have been done that we can't fix, but we can improve it. What are your thoughts on the, call it the millennial real estate gap?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to undersell the challenge of being prepared to buy or own a home. But a lot of things have changed in our economy since the baby boomers' path to home ownership was solidified. So I think at this point, if you follow HousingWire, you've heard us talk about or read Logan write about that the median age for a first-time buyer is now 32. And we have more people turning 32 this year than any time in history. So we have this massive wave of potential homeowners. That age has ticked up continually for the last 40 years. So people are buying homes later. There's a few things that drive that. More people are going to college. More people are moving to different parts of the country versus where they grew up after college. Career paths are a little bit different. Household formation is happening later. Childbirth is happening later. So there's a lot of things that are driving the age of first-time home buyers being pushed back. As the age of first-time home buyers gets pushed back, so does the expectation. So like the starter home isn't quite the starter home that it was when baby boomers were purchasing their first homes. A lot of these 32-year-old homeowners are looking for something a little bit larger, a little bit nicer, maybe in a little more school district defined than like their parents or grandparents may have been when they first bought homes. So setting the stage for that, things are different. The other thing that's really different is the number of dual income households. So like when we compare like the average home price and affordability of a home when boomers were first entering the homeownership cycle, the number of dual income households is significantly higher now. So they're like that. I don't know if that's a market reaction or a symptom, but but like it might mean that for millennials that are just entering the homeownership ecosystem, dual income is at least a median on the median is a requirement to affording homeownership. So there's, I mean, Dave, I don't want to undersell it, but ultimately the employment rate is so high and income growth is like kind of matching the inventory that is out there. So like there seems to be a path for millennials to continue to come into homeownership. But I don't want to undersell that it's harder or takes more planning or takes more saving, but the path is still there.
Yeah. By the way, here is Chris and I are working on it right now. We're calling it the Millennial Housing Gap, what we could do to help the next generation. And here's the data. This was shared, I think, by Todd Bellinger. Yeah, Todd, thank you for sharing this post last week in our group. But in 1990, baby boomers turning the age of 35 owned 34% of all real estate in America. And in 2019, medium age 31, so it's skewed. Like we were showing 35-year-olds versus 31-year-olds, but it's 4%. So, this, we can't draw, it's an exaggeration to make a point. But here's the thing, guys. This is a market where there will be winners, there will be market share leaders, and home ownership is awesome. And if you do a rent versus own analysis for a family, like literally my push to every mortgage professional, don't just do a pre-qual. A pre-qual is transactional. You have to do a pre-qual, but every family that, I don't care whether they have the right credit, they have the FICO score, make sure everybody gets a rent versus own. Make sure you're educating them about what it looks like, given their assumptions on appreciation rate, given their assumptions on their future income, everybody in America who's thinking about owning someday, heck, every college student should get a rent versus own analysis based off their local market, based off of their vocation, based off of their personal assumptions. And you know what? People would be better off. They'd be more educated. And so that's another rally cry for the mortgage industry. A pre-qual is transactional, it's a requirement. A rent versus own analysis is a great way to at least start educating the next generation on the economic benefits of homeownership. So I want to make sure.
I just pulled up one more data point here, which I think is like really important with that infographic that you shared. So from 1950 to the 70s, the average ages of men and women was 23 and 20 at the time of their first marriage. In the 80s, it was 25. It was 25 in the late 80s and climbed to 30 in 2018, and now it's 32. So we're talking about like the household formation age moving up from over 50 years from 20 to 32, which, like, when you think about like the average 31-year-old only have, or the millennials at the average age of 31 only having 4% of real estate, actually makes a lot of sense because they actually haven't hit that new household formation age. So I think that, the demographic data is just so important to really understanding the story that the data is, the housing data is telling us. Because when you compare a period of time where the average person was married to a period of time where the average person, or married might be the wrong term, but a household is formed versus a household not being formed, it's like it's such apples and oranges to compare the two. And if you don't take that into context, you could feel like the generation's been left behind. The reality is a generation just hasn't reached the point where they're buying homes yet. That's happening now. My view.
Opportunity. Of course, we need listings. So guys, hopefully you got value. Kristen and I will be publishing this halftime report by June 15th. We might publish it on the 7th, 8th, but I promise it by the 15th. Hopefully, we'll get some collaboration and help from Clayton and his team. Guys, there's a lot of media that gets a lot of criticism in the world today, but if you're a mortgage or real estate professional, like HousingWire does it right. These are like good people doing their best to report things that help professionals be educated, make good decisions, and deliver great value. Clayton, for any mortgage coach community people that are listening, just go to that one website, or what's the best way for people to follow you and get signed up, and get in your database and sign up for your premium services?
Yeah, visit HousingWire.com, and kind of right from the top of our toolbar, you can sign up for our free newsletters, or join HW Plus, our membership program, which gives you access to all of our content and discounts on events, and our members only Slack group to engage with our editors and writers. So it's all right there from the homepage of HousingWire. And
how much is the premium service?
Oh, it's like less than $300 a year. It's cheap, and the discounts come back to you on your first event you attend. It's a great value.
Guys, it's nothing. It's super low price. Get after it. Clayton, anything else you want to say before we hit stop record and wrap it up?
No, just thank you to all of the originators out there in the mortgage coach community that make me proud to be part of the mortgage industry, and keep this job exciting and fulfilling. Y'all represent us well, and make me proud every day to say that we get to work with all these great mortgage and real estate professionals who are doing right by homeowners across the country.
Right on. Well, guys, if you got value from this, give it a like, share it with your mortgage friends, share this with your leadership team. Stay tuned on more gold to come. Take care, everybody. This is a wrap.